Cabinet was presented with a report by the Interministerial Task Team on the Northwest, as appointed by His Excellency President Ramaphosa. The report provided an account of the preliminary work that has been done in the province over the last 2 weeks. Cabinet was satisfied with the progress made by the IMTT in its efforts to stabilize the Northwest. The IMTT, led by Minister in the Presidency, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, will remain seized with the Northwest issues. A detailed media briefing on the outcomes of this work by the IMTT will be held in the Northwest in the coming week. The fourth area is on Japan-Africa Public-Private Economic Forum. President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered a keynote address at the inaugural Japan-Africa Public-Private Economic Forum held at the Sentin Convention Center from the 3rd to the 4th of May 2018. The forum was co-hosted by South Africa together with the government of Japan and the Japan External Trade Organization. Cabinet welcomes the continued commitment that was made at the Tokyo International Conference on African Development in Nairobi in 2016, which saw Japan pledging $30 billion in Africa between 2016 and 2019. More than 100 Japanese companies have a presence in Africa currently. The fifth area is on the United States steel and aluminum tariff increase. Cabinet expresses its disappointment on the decisions by the US not to exempt South Africa from the application of steel and aluminum duties. The South African government will continue to engage with the US authorities to find a mutually acceptable outcome. Cabinet also encourages domestic exporters to continue to lobby US buyers to apply for product exemptions as South African companies export niche products and semi-processed products for further processing in the United States. The sixth area is on the revitalization of the industrial parks. Cabinet welcomes the completion of the first phase of the revitalization of the Phuthaditjhaba Industrial Park in the province of the Free State as an important milestone in implementing the revitalization of the industrial parks program. The 50 million upgrades will attract more local entrepreneurs to set up their operations due to the improved infrastructure and security. The seventh area is on investments. Cabinet congratulates the partnership between the Department of Trade and Industry and Aspen Pharmacare, which has resulted in the announcement of a 1 billion rands investment in the pharmaceutical drug plant in Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape. The pharmaceutical company benefited from the DTI's 121 tax incentive with a tax credit of about 209 million rands. The opening of the facility will create 500 new jobs. This is a significant investment which is taking South Africa into a new level in the manufacturing space and creating the necessary jobs that South Africa needs. The eighth area is on the lower data costs. Cabinet welcomes the new rules proposed by the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa to improve regulations around data, SMS, and voice services. The changes are a step towards ensuring fairness in business practice around data pricing and ensure that consumers will not lose unused data. The market inquiry being conducted by the Competition Commission will highlight and focus on additional measures to ensure that South African data prices support broader digital access and prepare us for the opportunities created by the fourth industrial revolution. On the mining sector, which is the ninth point, Cabinet joins President Cyril Ramaphosa in expressing sadness following the loss of lives of mine workers at the Sibanye Stillwater's Driefontein mine near Carltonville on the West Rand, and furthermore extends its condolences to the families and friends of the deceased. Our Minister of Mineral Resources, Mr. Gwede Mantashe, is expected to represent government at a memorial service to be held today. Cabinet urges the mining sector to fast-track their research that will assist us in the capability of detecting seismic activities in the mines and save lives. The 10th area is on the UN Children's Fund. Cabinet joins President Cyril Ramaphosa in expressing appreciation of UNICEF's support and cooperation in empowering the youth of South Africa. The Executive Director of UNICEF, Ms. Henrietta Fore, paid a courtesy call to the President on Monday, the 7th May 2018. She outlined UNICEF's report on South Africa's initiatives in the area of education, work skills development, and economic opportunities for young people, especially for those between 10 and 18 years old. UNICEF commended South Africa's efforts to create opportunities for young people to participate meaningfully in the economy and expressed willingness to assist our country's schools with the provision of water and sanitation. UNICEF has invited South Africa to share its successes on youth empowerment as part of its global campaign to advance opportunities for youth, a sure sign of our country's strengthening relations with the United Nations. The following area is on Cabinet decisions. Cabinet approved the Industrial Policy Action Plan IPAP 2018-2019 up to 2020-2021. This is the 10th reiteration of a rolling annual action plan aligned to successive three-year cycles of the medium-term expenditure framework. The revised IPAP summarizes the achievements of the industrial policy over the past 9 years. It also provides an economic analysis of the global and domestic economy relevant to industrial policy, summarizes the challenges and constraints to the optimal implementation of our industrial policy, as well as a range of transversal and sector-specific time-bound key action plans assigned to the respective departments. Cabinet also approved the tripartite free trade agreement to be tabled in Parliament for ratification. This agreement establishes the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa, East African Community, and Southern African Development Community. This is a key Africa-led project that marks a decisive step to overcome the continent's colonial heritage of small fragmented markets by promoting intra-African investments and attracting more foreign investment into the free trade area. As a result of regional integration efforts and stable economies, there has been strong growth in the intra-African investment. Cabinet approved South Africa's third National Communication Report for submission to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. The primary objective of this is to achieve the stabilization of greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere to a level that would prevent dangerous anthropogenic activities from interfering with the climate system. South Africa's report contains an analysis of its programs from the initial national communication to the second national communication and subsequently the third communication report as reviewed by the international community as well as domestic stakeholders. On bills that were presented before Cabinet, Cabinet approved the submission of the Aquaculture Development Bill of 2018 to Parliament. The bill, which came out of full consultation with all relevant stakeholders in the aquaculture sector, seeks to promote aquaculture development in the oceans economy. Cabinet also approved the submission of Occupational Health and Safety Bill of 2018 to Parliament. The bill amends the Occupational Health and Safety Act of 1993. Once adopted, the bill will ensure greater protection of workers in respect of injuries and diseases at the workplace. The bill establishes a clearly defined health and safety management system and is in line with the international best practice. It also provides for mandatory risk assessment to be conducted by the employer and a workplace-specific risk management plan developed and implemented to minimize the exposure of employees at risk. On messages coming from Cabinet, Cabinet congratulates President Cyril Ramaphosa, who has been invited by the International Labour Conference governing body to co-chair the Global Commission on Future of Work. The President has also been invited to address the conference, which is celebrating 100 years of existence. Whilst there, the President will pay homage and honor the centenary of former President Nelson Mandela. Cabinet thanks the Africa Group in the ILO governing body for leading the discussion in Geneva and appreciates the discussions held by the country's ruling party in their local constituencies. On condolences, Cabinet expresses condolences to the family and friends of the late former and First Minister of Finance of the Democratic South Africa, Mr. Derek Kies, who played a significant role in the smooth handover of Treasury to a democratically elected government in 1994. Cabinet extends well wishes to the Muslim community as they begin fasting for the holy month of Ramadan next week. During Ramadan, Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset as they spend time deepening their spirituality. On the upcoming events, President Cyril Ramaphosa will today visit the Department of Defense and the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, respectively, as part of his efforts to engage with senior leadership to ensure that the work of government is effectively aligned. This visit is part of the President's commitment announced in his maiden State of the Nation address in February 2018 to visit every national department in this regard. Deputy President David Mabuza will today address the 3rd Human Resource Development Council of South Africa Summit at the Emperor's Palace in Johannesburg under the theme Partnerships, Revitalizing Work and Learning. The 2-day summit will bring together key industry leaders, labor experts, and academics to deliberate on various issues, including proposals to deal with youth unemployment and advance empowerment and the 4th Industrial Revolution. Cabinet also reiterates the invitation to South Africans to join the year-long centenary celebrations of Tata Nelson Mandela and Mama Albertina Nontsikelelo Sisulu, who helped build the foundation of the South Africa's democracy we enjoy today. The Interministerial Committee on the Nelson Mandela Centenary and the centenary of Albertina Nontsikelelo Sisulu launched the national program this week. Details of the celebrations can be found on the government website, where other upcoming government scheduled briefings and activities can also be found. Lastly, on appointments. All appointments approved by Cabinet are subject to the verification of qualifications and the relevant clearance. The first one is of Ms. Lerato Matabuche as the DTI representative to the Board of the Export Credit Insurance Corporation of South Africa Limited. And the second one is of Ms. R.S. Mukhaladi as Deputy Director General, Institutional Support and Coordination in the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. That is the briefing post our Cabinet meeting yesterday. Thank you.
Thanks, Minister. At this point, we'll take questions. Can I start with Pretoria, as I usually do?
Thank you, DG. No questions in Pretoria.
Thank you. Okay, we're back. Okay.
Thanks, Minister and Pumla. Gay Davis, Eyewitness News. Minister, I just wondered whether, in terms of the Cabinet's condemnation of gender-based violence, there was any discussion around the allegations against Mduduzi Manona, a Member of Parliament, and thoughts about what should happen in that regard. And also, the Director General of the Finance Department, Dondo Mokjane, was addressing a high-level conference simultaneously where he said, among other things, that South Africa is not a failed state yet, but it's on the verge. And essentially he was appealing to public servants to pick up the baton in terms of stopping the failure to comply with prescripts in terms of spending. And we yesterday learned during the meeting of the Water and Sanitation Committee that since 2014, irregular expenditure in that department has skyrocketed to not 4 billion as the department disclosed, but actually closer to 6.5 billion rand, because just over 2.4 billion of that was not disclosed by the department on the basis that they were going to get a qualified audit anyway. Would you like to comment on that, particularly whether this was discussed by Cabinet and the level of concern about a situation where we're seeing perhaps a regression in terms of financial controls? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Adrian of the SABC. I'm covered by Gay. My question was about the ANC MP, Manana.
Morning, Minister. Paul Leclerc from Bloomberg. On the free trade agreement, will that have to come to Parliament for ratification at all? If so, when? And then secondly, has Cabinet been briefed by the President on his plans for an investment summit and jobs summit? You mentioned the other day that or hinted there could be some kind of problem in setting that. Has Cabinet aware of the plans that have been briefed with us? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Jan Gerber, News 24. Mr. Can you perhaps elaborate a bit about the report on Northwest? What is the most immediate concerns for Cabinet regarding Northwest? And is there a timeline on the resolution of the situation? Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me appreciate the questions that have been raised. As I indicated, Cabinet did reflect on issues with regard to gender-based violence, and in our overall comment and reflection was, amongst other things, to deal with the issues broadly. Amongst others, it's around victim support, as well as repeat offenders, and lastly, the issues of death and assaults that are made by individuals known to victims. It is on those bases that broadly Cabinet actually reflected, but Cabinet did not discuss Mduduzi Manana as an individual, but Cabinet did reflect on gender-based violence in the Republic of South Africa and how it has been meted. And that is the issue that we dealt with, precisely because the item Mduduzi Manana was not necessarily an item, but the reflection on gender-based violence was the subject. If he as a person is affected, yes, we must condemn his act, and we do hope that the law will take its own course, so that then no individual, irrespective of standing, can actually run away with the infliction of pain, humiliation, and degradation of the rights of other individuals, particularly women and other vulnerable groups. The issue that is being raised by the DG, Mukhajani, it is quite interesting that he raised the issue about not a failed state yet. Surely he should have also elaborated on how the South African government and the system has got processes in place to deal with those kind of issues, so that then we save and protect the country from actually being a failed state. And I do believe that it is not in the best interest of any individual to contribute to that. With regard to the issues of the Department of Water and Sanitation, I think that is a matter that Parliament is seized with, and we all are looking forward to the processes in Parliament so that those matters can be attended to. For now, I think we must really welcome the efforts of Parliament and hope that everybody will contribute so that we deal with the myths, we deal with the perceptions, and we deal with the realities, and we put corrective measures in place. On the free trade agreement, it is now going to be part of our next term's program into Parliament. So it will be with immediate effect now that it has come past the Cabinet. It would be taken through by the department and the leader of government to make sure that the programming unit of the National Assembly does put it for ratification because of its strategic significance for, amongst others, promotion of economic investment in South Africa and creation of jobs. Cabinet didn't actually get the briefing around the Jobs and Investment Summit, but we do know it as work in progress. There are streams that are busy within the government departments doing preparations in that regard, and it is work in progress. So yes, we're looking forward to that Investment and Jobs Summit. There are teams. Our department is working with the Presidency, Trade and Industry around packaging, information and messaging for that particular significant summit. On the Northwest, as we indicated, we did receive a preliminary report. We did reflect on the recommendations in the preliminary report. We did appreciate the work, including the intensive work that must again continue to be done in the province of the Northwest. And hence we, as Cabinet, agreed that the IMTT would have to come and brief communities and all stakeholders in the Northwest on the progress that they have made, supported, of course, by Cabinet on their views with regard to the way forward. The timelines, as I've said, there will be possibly a media brief that would take place before the end of next week that would also outline the work that has been done already, including the work that they will continue to do. It is not a once-off issue because the intention by government is to reposition the Northwest government and ensure that the challenges that are there, both systemic and those that are subjective, are all being attended to.
Thanks, Minister. I think the last round, Pretoria, you don't have any other questions?
No questions,
Okay.
DG, thanks.
Thank you. Thabo, and then yes, it's you, and then Anika is the last.
Thank you. Minister, my name is Thabo Mukuni. I work for the Sunday Times. Why wait for next week, given the political situation in the Northwest? You don't need me to tell you what's happening in the Northwest. Surely you know. You see it on TV every day. The situation is quite tense. Why wait for next week?
Mr. Jan Lange from Report Newspaper. The Cabinet discussed regarding the tariffs introduced by the United States against our steel imports. The Cabinet discussed the possibility that behind this may be the way South Africa votes in the United Nations against proposals or take positions against this policy.
Anika, you're the last.
Thank you very much. Annika Larson from ENCA. Minister, could you explain to us possibly why the issue of Mr. Manana would not be on the agenda for discussion, considering he is an MP? This is a very high-profile case. It seems remiss and somewhat odd. Thank you.
I think that's all, eh?
Yeah. No, thanks once more. Why wait for next week? As I've indicated, we received the preliminary report on the Northwest. There is work in progress that is being done, and there are considerations that have been put before Cabinet, and it would be quite important that when the IMTT on behalf of the South African government comes out to brief the public, it would have also dealt with our own internal processes, both in government, in the Northwest, and across different stakeholders that are affected. We have also as government, and of course you don't have to remind us, we know, we see what is happening. We have also been able to bring the situation to some calmness and reassuring South Africans that we are giving attention to the situation in the Northwest. And as I'm saying, by next week there will be a comprehensive report based on the report that was presented and we're quite certain that that media brief will be an inclusive briefing that also give more indication on the work ahead, and as I've said, repositioning the Northwest and making sure that we continue to do the work and serving the people of the Northwest in an integrated and coordinated manner as the three spheres of government. On the tariffs, yes, we did discuss. It is also in the statement, because for us it's not only on steel, it does also include the aluminium space. We were briefed also by Minister Rob Davis, and hence our commitment to continue engaging the United States bilaterally, including in the forums that are there to deal with this issue. As to whether it has to do with how South Africa votes in the UN and stuff, I think our sovereignty and our right has to be respected. And we're not the only ones who at some time are found to be on the opposite of how the US vote. But we do believe that given our own historical abilities, we will be in a position to continue engaging the United States of America. Both our Minister of International Relations as well as the Minister of Trade and Industry are seized with this particular matter. Anika, you raising the issue of Mduduzi Manana as to why was it not an item of cabinet. Cabinet has got its own processes of putting up items for discussion, and as I've said, without dealing with Mduduzi Manana as an individual, Cabinet has a view on gender-based violence, and that includes actions that are similar to those that have been done by Mduduzi Manana, and therefore the condemnation does apply even to him. And I do believe that you would also understand our system in government. Mduduzi Manana is a member of parliament, and you might also be aware, Anika, that the Speaker of Parliament has actually issued a statement, because Mduduzi Manana also does actually account and is a member of parliament. You are also aware, Anika, that our Minister of Women and Children, Comrade Batabile Dlamini, has also issued a statement, and as the Minister, we're quite sure that she speaks on behalf of government with regard to government stance and what we have pronounced here now.
So just follow up, Minister, thank you. Yes, the ANC, however, hasn't said anything, which I think has been a glaring omission.
Can I help you even on that?
Yes, please.
Yes. I'm not Pulema, no Zizikoto here, the SG. We're here to brief South Africans on government, on cabinet issues, and I'm sure you are aware that just this morning Zizikoto was out on record commenting also and making a statement on behalf of the African National Congress. So I would avoid the temptation of having to assume a responsibility beyond that one has been given, because tomorrow it will be seen as an abuse. It has been condemned within the broader statement that we have made around gender-based violence, and we do believe that he's not exempted from what we believe should happen to perpetrators.
Thank you, Minister.
There's one last minister who can engage. Is it two
on the US?
Oh.
Just to follow up, Minister, because will South Africa's vote in the US and in the UN and on other fora be part of the discussions on steel and aluminium tariffs?
No, it won't.
Okay, you're the last one.
Thanks, Minister. Gay Davis, Eyewitness News again. I hope I'm not going to be getting you to stray into Richard House territory here with this question, but to what extent do you think there are complications for government in terms of acting more speedily, in terms of intervening in Northwest? To what extent are those state interventions being held hostage, if you like, by the internal dynamics that are currently at play within the governing party? Thanks.
In fact, since the last cabinet, there's been a lot of progress done with regard to interventions by central government. We know what is now being done in the area of health in the province. We know what National Treasury has also been attending to. We are aware how the criminal justice cluster has also been able to work. In fact, there hasn't been any blockage. There's been, and I think the last time the IMTT spoke, it actually confirmed that there's a lot of cooperation that they find from the province of the Northwest.
Thank you very much. We've come to the end of the briefing, and thanks for coming. See you in 2 weeks' time.
Joy. Sorry, were you Jason Collins or almost a man?
Just coming out of that post-cabinet briefing to the media this morning from Nomvula Mokonyane, also just taking us through some of the sentiments being discussed there, also making a special reference and mention to women and gender-based violence, as well as supporting the calls for any victims to make sure that they do make their claims aware to police. We'll take a short break on SABC Newsroom. Do stay tuned.